We are 3 days away from heading down to St. Louis to cover Arch Madness, and I can't wait to get on the road towards St. Louis to cover Drake, who has earned themselves the number one seed in hopes of winning their third straight Missouri Valley Conference title. Best time of the year, the first conference tournament of the season. By Sunday, someone will have punched their ticket to the big dance, and then we just sit back and we watch the rest of the conference tournaments unfold and see what happens as we are now here in March. But before we get to today's show and kind of preview, I know I mentioned late last week, how you're going to be wanting to tune in to this show. And you are, because we have huge news. We are now not just Media Row with Justin Miller. We are now Media Row with Justin Miller, sponsored by Kelly's Little Nipper, the title sponsor of the show. Kelly's Little Nipper. Go check them out at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Great dive bar of wonderful food. I destroy the hot sausage sandwich with banana peppers on it. Oh my God, it's my favorite thing. Great drinks. You know, if you just want a regular, Busch Light, they got that for you. Any sort of regular beer, but they can make some really awesome drinks too. I'm a big Screw-Rita fan, which is, of course, a margarita screwdriver mixed together. Oh my God. Best drink ever. It's the best summer drink for sure. And a huge shout out to just Kelly's Little Nipper for jumping on board with us. And I'm really excited about this partnership, because not only is this a place I've grown to love, because I've been going there for a while now. It's become tradition with my family and friends that in the summer, after we go play Grandview Golf Course, it's time to hit up Kelly's Little Nipper. So not only do they have great food and great drinks, but just the community there is wonderful. I was talking to Jeff, the owner, about how you walk in and you could have in your head like, oh, I'll get a drink, maybe two, and then I'm out of there. Not going to stay late. And then you lose track of the time and you realize you've been there for 2.5 hours because you've striked up a conversation with some person that you didn't even know 2.5 hours earlier. It's a wonderful place. The community is really what sets them apart. This is a place where everyone feels welcomed. It's so cool when you have the owner and bartenders walking around just talking to anyone. They're not just closed off doing their own thing. They will come and say hi and remember your name, even if you've been there just one time. It's really, really cool. And I can't say enough to Jeff and the people at Kelly's Little Nipper how grateful I am that they are jumping on with us and going to be, a great partner here for Media Row. And I'm excited to see what I can do to help them out as well. I just can't wait. I'm really excited. I even got my Go Bulldogs Get Nippered shirt on, ready to go. Make sure to check them out and go say hi to Jeff. And if you are able to talk with people, make sure to say that Media Row sent you there, and just have a great time. I don't think it'll be hard for you to have a great time, but we will definitely have some more news coming up here in the next few weeks with Kelly's Little Nipper, but definitely wanted to share that with you guys. Yes, I know it was a deep tease, but had to get a few things situated and get it all ready to go. So here we are, first Monday of March, we're ready to go, and we got a sponsor here. So Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Great food, great drink, and even a better community. Go check them out and make sure to tell them Media Row sent you. So let's get into today's show. We have a lot to get to, and I don't even know if we'll be able to get to all of it, but we'll try our best. So starting off, we are 3 days away from Arch Madness. Went there 2 years ago. It's an unbelievable tournament. If you haven't been, it's a blast. You should try to go if you have. Just a short 5-hour drive from Des Moines, so it's not even far away. And it's just one of the coolest tournaments for a mid-major too. To get a tournament that size, it just speaks to the fans and the schools and the programs that have really built this into something. So I loved it 2 years ago. I can't wait to get back and see it again because, I mean, so much gets developed and so much changes year after year. So really excited to see that. But the Drake Bulldogs earned themselves the 1 seed. Yes, they basically got it against that game win against Evansville. They, earned themselves the sole right to the regular season champs, but they were able to cut down the nets, shower Coach McCollum with confetti afterwards in a overtime thriller against Missouri State yesterday in the Knapp Center. And they were going to cut down the nets and they were going to have a celebration regardless at the end of the game. But you definitely wanted to win that one just because not only is it Missouri State's the last team in the conference, you don't want to lose to them, but it would just be awkward. I mean, losing to Missouri State and then having to cut down the nets, everyone would kind of be like, "Oh, this feels a little sour." But Drake able to push through it. They started off the first half kind of slow. I mean, they weren't making shots, kind of looked sloppy on offense, just looked confused too on offense to start off the game, but slowly in that first half started to figure some things out, kept it really close despite, Missouri State in the first and second half just could not miss from behind the arc. And it's one of those games where there was something clearly off with the Drake offense or defense, but at the same time, a last place team, 1-11 on the road, when they start shooting 6 of 10 from behind the arc, it's also just their night. They were hitting deep shots. They were hitting shots late in the shot clock, shots with hands right in their face. They were just on it offensively, the Bears were. But Drake able to keep a 1-point lead in that first half, 29-28. Again, it was kind of just Sturts for the most part of that first half. Really wasn't seeing much balance. But they were able to keep a lead. And then that second half hits, and Drake has to play from behind. They have to crawl back that entire second half because Missouri State, again, in that second half, they shot 47% from the field and then only missed 3 3-pointers. They were 4 of 7 from behind the arc. And you had Drake, on the other hand, that was really struggling from the 3-point line. 3 of 9 in the first half, 2 of 9 in the second half. But Drake still, just with their defensive intensity and the way they're so physical on both sides of the ball, you never feel like they're out of a game. And certainly in this one, when it was the biggest lead, I think, in the second half for Missouri State was about 7, maybe 9. But Drake just continued to crawl back into this one. And you were starting to get more help in that second half from guys like Mitch Muscari, Daniel Abreu, definitely from the bench, which we'll get to in a little bit. But then you're starting to see that balance come around, and a huge, huge performance off the bench from Tavion Banks, who nails the 2 free throws late to force overtime. Talk about performing under pressure, and Tavion Banks did just that. And then in overtime, just took over. Drake, 9 points compared to Missouri State's 1 in overtime, just went on an absolute tear. I saw a tweet on Twitter about how that may have been Drake's greatest stretch all season long, and I don't disagree. The way they were really struggling and had ups and downs and some really high highs and low lows in that second half, to go into overtime and put that all out of your mind and just realize it's a brand new game and come out swinging and really not give Missouri State, who was unstoppable in the regulation, to really go in and just purely dominate them in overtime was incredible. And we saw why Drake was able to win. And that's because you have Missouri State that I remember when I was on with Trav and Ross, they gave me a lot of crap for saying Missouri State's going to give Drake troubles. And Trav was like, no, they only have 9 wins. They're awful this year, blah, blah, blah. Which he's not wrong. They have not been good. But they have a good starting 5. I won't say great, but they have a good starting 5 where that can really compete. They competed against Bradley. They competed against UNI, Belmont. They have competed and caused issues for the top dogs in the conference. The last time they played Drake at home, it went into overtime too. It was a complete deja vu game, very similar to the Drake women and the Lady Bears. But you saw why Drake was able to overcome all the issues that Missouri State was enforcing on Drake early on, and that was just depth. And that's why I said Missouri State's going to give Drake troubles last week, but Drake should win because they have actual players coming off the bench that can put up points. And Missouri State just all year long hasn't shown that. And Drake, 5-0 in overtime games. You had Banks dominate with 14 points coming off the bench. But Drake, 25 points in bench points compared to just 8 from Missouri State. And that was the biggest key. I mean, Isaiah Howard, let's talk about the young man for a second. The true freshman. And you see Coach McCollum, he's on him. And I think that's a sign of respect. Alyssa Hurdle from the Des Moines Register and I were talking about this because throughout the game, Isaiah Howard had to play more minutes because, again, I just don't think Isaiah Jackson's 100%. He played about 6 minutes in the first half and then about a little under 4 in the second half. Isaiah Howard played most of the time coming off the bench with nearly 26 minutes. But, with the true freshman, Coach McCollum is, on him quite a bit. And Isaiah Howard doesn't flinch. I mean, he kind of just sits there, he listens, and then he goes out there and performs. And Coach McCollum was very, very impressed with him in the post-game press conference, talking about how that's kind of the players he goes after. I mean, look at Mitch Muscari. Mitch Muscari, we've talked about this before, could go 5 of 5 and miss a 3-pointer, and you see McCollum really on him. And again, I think that's a sign of respect because I think that's McCollum kind of building up Isaiah Howard to be that leader, kind of like Mitch Muscari. So to keep talking about Isaiah Howard, he had a really, really tough start to that game. He was 1 of 7 to really start this game, 1 of 6 from behind the 3-point line, but continued to show why he's so vital on this team coming off the bench because of his athleticism, because of the way he plays strong defense, and he cleaned up his fouls that he was having issues with, a few weeks ago. But he just stuck with it. He was hard on himself at times, and Coach was hard on him, but he didn't let it destroy the team. And, people will go, the biggest play from him in that game was when he hit that 3-pointer, towards the end of regulation or in overtime. And while those were huge threes, I'm going to say I don't think that 3 was his biggest play. I think the biggest play from Isaiah Howard was the missed shot from, I think, Bennett Sturts, and he comes sprinting down the baseline as basically Missouri State's boxing out, just expecting the ball to drop out of bounds. And he comes hustling, diving on the floor, and saves the ball to Tavion Banks, who lays it in. That was the play that proved why he is going to be a huge factor for the Bulldogs moving forward and why he's so vital right now, even as a true freshman, because he hustles. He doesn't let anything get in his head. Sure, is he hard on himself? Yes. And if he's having a bad game offensively, is it tough for him? Yes. But it's still, for him being as young as he is, he plays like a fifth year where, we've seen Mitch Muscari, who put up 0 points against Evansville. And yeah, we see him shaking his head down the court. He's kind of irritated, as expected, but he never puts the team at harm. You're seeing that now with Isaiah Howard. He never lets his personal game affect the team's game. And that's what's been so huge and what I was so impressed with in Isaiah Howard. Just very impressed with him. He finished with 9 points, was 1 of 6 from the field, 3 of 11, but goes out there with 5 total rebounds and just 3 assists, 2 steals. Just an unbelievable performance by the young fella. So really impressed with just the bench play, and Drake's going to need them going into St. Louis. And that brings me now to talking about kind of the concerns I have going into St. Louis. But before I do that, I did ask both Coach McCollum and Bennett Sturtz after the game just about the challenges that St. Louis now has ahead for the Drake Bulldogs.
You're not running up and down the floor as much, right? Run half the distance. You got to play us too. So you got to win the first game. It's not 3 games; it's 1 game, and the first game is always the toughest. So got to win the first game. We'll figure out the second one when that comes around.
I think it was good that we played Charleston. We had 3 games in 4 days, not 3 games in 3 days. But yeah, it'll be good. Just save our legs this week. Get ready for Arch, and the Valley's crazy, so every game's gonna be tough.
And I love Coach McCollum. He's been awesome, and he's been great to allow me to interview him and be a part of this team in covering them throughout the season. Same with Bennett Sturtz and the other players. But I'll say this with Coach McCollum, on that interview, I get that, and as a fan, that's kind of the answer I would want to hear from my coach, being really confident. I love the line of saying, hey, teams have to play us too. And I also understand that this was one of the best seasons Drake has ever had. 27-3, regular season champs outright, first time since 2008. You're the number 1 seed now going into your conference tournament. I get that you don't want to fix anything that's not broken. They're winning. But this is a little different than a regular season. The goal is to play 3 games in 3 days. And while Drake was able to play in Charlotte in Charleston and win, 3 games in 4 days, earlier in the season, where you're not as banged up, now you're late in the season, your body's tired, and you just have so many guys playing so many minutes on the starting lineup. And you have 3 out of 5 starters averaging 35 plus minutes, with 2 of them in Mascari and Sturtz nearly playing every second of the game. I mean, Sturtz is averaging 39.8 minutes a game, and I think Mascari is averaging 38. And I still have yet to see that 1 minute where Sturtz is out. I still feel like he plays legitimately every minute. But offensively, this has just been Bennett Sturtz and Tavion Banks have been the most consistent. And you look at the starting lineup, and Isaiah Jackson isn't looked upon as a scorer. I get that. He's more looked upon for his defense. But Daniel Abreu, he has the talent to really put up 10-plus points, and he's had sparks, but just hasn't been there consistently. Mitch Mascari, one of the best shooters, has only scored 10-plus points in one of the last 5, including 0 against Evansville, where he shot 0 of 7. He's just had a season this year where, he looks like he's back at it, after that Kansas State game, puts up 20-plus, and then he has a lull. But then he has a great game against Indiana State, and then he's starting to get back on that track of being the great shooter we know him to be. And then he's had a lull. He's just had an up and down season. And then you look at the bench, and it's Tavion Banks and Isaiah Howard that have really been game changers for this team offensively. And I get that you're not expecting everyone to put up Bennett Sturtz numbers. And I get that everyone has a role to play. And Drake has done a really good job of these players know what role is theirs, and they play it to perfection. And they don't complain. But now when you're playing 3 games in 3 days, You're trying to beat teams for, the third straight time in the season, which beating them twice is hard enough. We're just seeing, Evansville wasn't easy. Missouri State, it wasn't easy at all. This is where it gets concerning, is where this team, are they going to be worn out? When you have 3 out of 5 starters averaging 35 plus minutes, 2 of them nearly playing every second of the game in Sturts and Muscari. When you only have really 2 consistent scorers in Tavion Banks and Bennett Sturts, who is going to step up? Who is going to be the guy that is going to be consistent to help those 2 to really take some pressure off of Sturts and off of Tavion? I think Abreu has a great opportunity to be that guy. Muscari, we know what he can do, but someone has to step up and help this team out, because I think you're going to see teams really do what Bradley did against Drake, where they just focus on Bennett and they're going to make the rest of the guys beat them. And it's tough to stop Bennett, and you have to have a good defense. Bradley has a really good defense. And we've seen UNI try it. We saw Indiana State try it. I mean, this team, they've been successful with the same concern we've had all season long. But I think the 3 games in 3 days could be the biggest challenge this team has faced yet. I think it's going to be really difficult for this team. I think they can do it. I think McCollum knows he can coach this team to a tournament championship and a outright bid to the NCAA tournament. We all have watched this team that when they get going, they're really tough to stop. But against Missouri State and against Evansville, you kind of sit there as a fan and someone that is analyzing this team from afar. You sit there and in the back of your head, you're going, man, I could see this team being worn out come Sunday if they get there. So I think it's just going to be a real challenge for this team. I'm really excited, though. I still think, we're going to get to the Arch Madness bracket here in a second, and I still think Drake makes it to Sunday. But it's just, there's no such thing as an easy win for this team. And I think every team would say that. But, sometimes you watch, Kansas a few years back in the Big 12 where, there were some games where you go, okay, this should be an easy win. I mean, going into that Missouri State game, Trav and Ross were saying this should be an easy win for Drake against Missouri State. The line was set at 14.5 favoring Drake. So there were people believing that should be an easy win, but the fans, the people that have followed this team in this conference, they know just the style of play Drake has. Nothing's going to be easy. And with how physical they play and how, their roster is incredibly deep, it is going to be a real challenge. 3 games in 3 days. But let's quickly get into, they released the Arch Madness bracket here today, and it's going to be a really fun few days in St. Louis. Starting off, you have Southern Illinois taking on Indiana State. That game will be on Thursday at noon. The winner of that one will take on the Drake Bulldogs on the next day at noon as well. And man, Indiana State, if I'm a Drake fan, you're wanting SIU to win that one, just because Indiana State, the last time these two played, very similar performance like Missouri State had against the Bulldogs, where they were able to hit threes, they were able to stay in the game and really force Bennett Sturts to do basically everything in that one. So I do not want to play Indiana State right off the bat. Would rather see SIU. You have Belmont with the 4th seed. They play following Drake on that Friday at 2:30. Illinois State, Missouri State, they'll face the winner of that one on Thursday. Game at 2:30. Illinois State, I think, will get past Missouri State. A team that again, I wouldn't be shocked if they make it to the semifinal. I think they have great physicality. They're not afraid to get bloody, as Kingsinger has shown. I think this is a team that is well coached. I think this is a experienced team and a team that has Chase Walker. I mean, Chase Walker is one of the best players in the Valley. If it wasn't for the season Sturtz was having, I would say he was the Missouri Valley Player of the Year. But I think Illinois State gets past Missouri State. We'll break down these games more into Wednesday as well. Number 2, Bradley. They are in the 2nd seed. They'll face the winner of Murray State and Evansville. And then UNI earning the 3 seed after losing to Bradley yesterday. Bradley on a tear. That team just dominated UNI, and I saw a lot of tweets where people were saying, don't count out the Braves just yet. And I don't think really many Valley fans and Bulldog fans were counting out the Braves because we just know they're going to be good no matter what. But some of the analysts, you were seeing them drop in those mid-major polls, and they're not getting mentioned whatsoever with the NCAA tournament. This is a good team. They only have 7 losses. They're big. They can stretch the floor. I mean, we could see for the second time in 3 years Drake Bradley facing off in the championship. But Bradley will face Murray State or Evansville, and then UIC Valpo at 8:30. They'll play UNI, the winner of that one, at 8:30 on that Friday. So the Arch Madness bracket is set. The first conference tournament of the season. Someone is going to be punching their ticket to the NCAA tournament. Can't wait. Make sure to follow along on social media. We have something in the works here to get you pumped up for St. Louis, and really excited to see everyone down there. But a huge thank you to everyone who's followed throughout this regular season. Thank you so much. Thank you to Drake for allowing me to come into the Knapp Center basically out of the blue. I mean, I wasn't someone planning on covering this team as in-depth as I am right now, in early November. But then some changes happened, and one of the first messages I got was from Dave and Jack and saying, hey, there's a pass for you if you want it. And so a huge thank you to Brian Harden as well. He's helping me set up couple of few things that will be really cool for this podcast in the future. Something else to mention, I can't believe I forgot this. So Fran Fraschilla was at the Knapp Center yesterday, right? So, of course, I have to go introduce myself. And myself, tell him hi and how I've grown up watching him, all the fanboying stuff, right? Mention, though, how I have this podcast and I'm covering Drake. And we may get Fran on the podcast. And, I feel very confident that I could get Fran on the podcast now. So, hopefully, we can set something up maybe right after Selection Sunday and have some fun and really analyze the March Madness bracket. But first we have to get through early March, and we have Arch Madness with St. Louis. So a huge thank you to everyone. Make sure to go check out Kelly's Little Nipper. I'll say the address. I know Jeff was telling me, he's like, you don't have to harp on the address, but since this is new for the listeners, I want to make sure you know where it's at so you can get there. Tell them Media Row sent you at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. A huge thank you to Jeff, and we got our first sponsor. I can't wait to see it just grow. Really excited about this. So Kelly's Little Nipper in Des Moines, make sure to tell them Media Row sent you, the new title sponsor of Media Row Podcast. That will do it for our show today. I know there was still much to get to that we weren't able to with our time, but on Wednesday, make sure to check us out because we're going to go in depth with the entire Arch Madness bracket and possibly give our picks for the champions, or for the champion. Also, we have some Drake women's basketball to preview. Couldn't even get to their game against UNI today, recapping that game today. But definitely We'll talk about Drake women's basketball and what they have ahead in their final 2 games of the season, 10 days away from them going down to Evansville for their Missouri Valley Conference tournament. So make sure to follow us on social media. Listen at 2 o'clock on Wednesday as we will preview Arch Madness and Drake women's basketball. Thank you so much for joining us on the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller, served by Kelly's Little Nipper.